We hear so much about all these incredible breakthroughs in technology,
Yeah,
right?
all the time.
It's easy to just assume that, like
Yeah.
everyone's benefiting, the future is evenly distributed.
Right.
But today we're going to be looking at some research that kind of throws a wrench in that idea, specifically looking at this significant gap in who actually gets to benefit from all this progress,
Right.
especially when we're talking about the global south.
Yeah.
And the source material we've got today really highlights this. It's a white paper. And the stats in this thing are pretty alarming.
Oh, yeah.
Really eye-opening stuff.
For sure.
So we're going to be diving into that today. But before we get into the specifics of this white paper and its proposed solutions, maybe we should just lay out some of the really stark realities that it brings up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we're talking about some huge numbers here.
Yeah, it points out that even as far out as 2025, we're still looking at over 2.7 billion people globally without internet access. And that's a significant portion of the population. And then on top of that, even for those who are connected, a lot of them don't have access to high-speed broadband.
Right.
And it's really that high-speed access that allows you to actually fully utilize all the potential that the internet has to offer.
Absolutely. It's that critical infrastructure that's missing for so many.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, inconvenience, right?
Right.
This has real economic and social consequences.
Absolutely. It exacerbates inequality, both between and within countries.
Exactly. And the white paper particularly highlights the impact on rural areas. And even beyond just the ability to get online, the white paper brought up this one statistic that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
The estimated loss to developing economies due to women's lack of digital inclusion. $1 trillion.
That is a massive amount of untapped potential.
That's a huge number, and that really kind of drives home the point that this is not just a minor inconvenience.
Right.
This is a significant global issue. Yeah, absolutely.
And on top of that, there's also this growing gap in terms of practical know-how. Even as connectivity increases, people aren't necessarily equipped with the skills to actually effectively use technology.
Right.
It's kind of like you have a library, but you don't know how to read.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
So that's what this white paper really wants to address, and it proposes some solutions, and that's what we're going to be digging into today.
Okay.
The paper is called "The Future is Here, but Not Evenly Distributed: EON's AI for Income Academy."
Catchy title.
Right, it grabs you. And it's from EON Reality, which, just for context, is a company that's been working in the XR space for a while.
Okay.
Virtual reality, augmented reality, that kind of stuff.
So they're kind of coming at this from that perspective.
Exactly. And their mission, as laid out in this white paper, is to really tackle this digital divide head on, but in a way that's specifically tailored to the unique needs and challenges of the global south.
So the core of their solution is this three-pronged approach.
Okay.
And we're going to go through each of those prongs in detail.
All right, sounds good.
But before we jump into those, I think it's important to note that the white paper itself is really, it's research-backed.
Okay.
They put a lot of effort into looking at the problem from different angles.
Yeah.
And really trying to come up with solutions that are grounded in evidence and data.
So it's not just like a marketing ploy, it's an actual proposal.
Exactly. It's a substantial document, and we're going to try to unpack the key points here in our deep dive.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so the first pillar of their solution is something they call the AI for Income Academy.
Okay, an academy.
Yeah, and the core of this is structured education.
Makes sense.
But what makes it really different is that it's specifically designed with the needs of the global south in mind.
So not just your typical online courses, I'm guessing.
No, not at all. A key differentiator here is the AI-driven personalization.
Personalization, okay.
Yeah, so the curriculum actually adapts to an individual's learning pace and style, as well as the specific challenges that are prevalent in their local context.
That's interesting. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly, because a cookie-cutter approach, rarely delivers optimal results,
Right.
especially when you're dealing with such diverse cultural and socioeconomic landscapes.
So how does that personalization work?
Well, the white paper emphasizes the fact that they've created these culturally relevant modules, covering a really wide range of areas, from agricultural best practices to healthcare delivery, even things like sustainable water and waste management.
So they're really trying to address very specific needs.
Exactly. And to really ensure accessibility, they support a crazy number of languages.
Oh, wow.
37 languages and regional dialects.
That's impressive.
So it's really about making sure that anyone, regardless of their background, can access this information.
All right, so how does the AI actually make that personalization happen?
Yeah, that's the really cool part. From what I understand, the AI actually analyzes a learner's interactions with the platform.
Mm.
So it's looking at what they're engaging with, what they're struggling with, what their preferred learning styles are.
So it's constantly gathering data.
Exactly. And based on that analysis, it then tailors the content.
Okay.
It'll provide additional resources where needed, adjust the pace of the learning, even suggest alternative learning path to optimize comprehension and retention.
So it's like having a personal tutor built into the system.
In a way, yeah.
That's very cool.
So that's the AI for Income Academy, this adaptive learning environment.
Okay.
Now, the second key pillar of their solution is what they call the Entrepreneur Guide application.
Okay, a good guide.
Yeah, and this is essentially an 8-step roadmap
8 steps. All right.
designed to guide individuals from that initial spark of an idea all the way to actually generating sustainable income.
So they're really trying to demystify the entrepreneurial journey.
Exactly. They lay it out in a very step-by-step way, trying to make it less intimidating, more accessible.
What are some of the steps involved?
Well, it starts with really focusing on identifying your personal purpose.
Okay, so like, what are you passionate about?
Exactly. And also understanding the specific problems within your community. So it's not just about, coming up with any random idea.
Right.
It's about connecting that passion with a real need in your local context.
That makes sense.
Then it moves through assessing available resources, exploring relevant technological solutions, and they even emphasize the use of these so-called no-code tools to adapt existing technologies without needing to be a programmer.
That's a huge barrier to entry for a lot of people, not having those coding skills.
Absolutely. So they're trying to make that easier. And then it covers the practicalities of implementation, market identification, and ultimately developing a monetization strategy.
So really, like a full business plan.
Yeah, they walk you through the whole process.
So where does the AI come into this entrepreneur guide?
That's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
They have this AI-powered matchmaking system.
Matchmaking, like a dating app for entrepreneurs.
Well, not exactly, but kind of similar in the sense that it connects people based on their needs and what they have to offer. So the application actually uses algorithms to connect aspiring entrepreneurs not only with appropriate technological solutions, but also with potential collaborators, mentors, even funding opportunities.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's taken that whole networking aspect and kind of supercharging it with AI.
Right.
And on top of that, it also helps you track your progress against milestones, provides guidance and support throughout that whole 8-step process.
So it's like a personalized business coach in your pocket.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
All right, so we've got the learning aspect covered with the academy and the practical application with the guide.
Right.
What's the third piece?
The third key element is the EON-XR platform. And this is where the experiential learning really comes into play.
Experiential learning, all right.
So instead of just reading about stuff, you actually get to try things out.
So it's hands-on.
Very hands-on. They utilize virtual simulations to provide risk-free environments for practicing new skills.
Makes sense.
So you can make mistakes without real-world consequences.
Right.
And they also use augmented reality overlays to offer real-time guidance during actual implementation.
So it's like having an expert looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, providing you with just-in-time support and feedback.
Interesting.
And the white paper makes a pretty bold claim.
Oh.
They say this platform enables knowledge acquisition up to 4 times faster than traditional learning methods.
4 times faster. Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's a significant acceleration, and they attribute that speed to several key factors.
What are all those factors?
Well, they talk about engaging multiple neural pathways simultaneously, essentially engaging different parts of the brain at once. They also highlight the concept of spatial anchoring, where information is linked to virtual or real-world locations, which can aid memory.
Okay.
And then there's embodied cognition, that connection between physical actions and abstract concepts.
So it's not just passive learning, it's active and engaging.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
They also emphasize contextual relevance by tailoring examples to local situations. And they utilize multisensory engagement and incorporate continuous feedback mechanisms to ensure understanding.
So they're really tapping into all the different ways that people learn.
Yeah, it's a very holistic approach.
And the white paper also mentioned a significantly higher knowledge retention rate.
Right. They claim 75% retention with their platform compared to like 10% with traditional training.
That's a huge difference.
It is. If those numbers hold up, it's really remarkable.
And another crucial point they made is that the platform is designed to work offline.
Right. So even in areas with limited or unreliable internet access, people can still benefit.
That's essential for a lot of the Global South.
Absolutely. They're not just assuming everyone has perfect connectivity. Now, the white paper goes into some detail about what they consider the technological breakthrough behind this learning approach.
Okay, what did they highlight there?
Well, beyond the learning principles we just talked about, it seems like the key is really the integration of all these different XR technologies.
Right, virtual and augmented reality working together.
Exactly. It's not just about one technology. It's about the combination and how they're applied within this structured framework. And also, the sheer scale of creating locally relevant content in so many languages is a pretty remarkable technological and logistical undertaking.
Yeah, that's a huge effort.
So it's not just a simple solution, it's a complex system, but it's designed to tackle a complex problem.
Right.
Now, one of the things that really impressed me about this white paper is that they don't just stop at theory.
Okay, great.
They actually provide some really compelling examples of where this approach is already making a tangible difference.
So, real-world impact. What were some of the examples that stood out to you?
Well, the one that really struck me was the example of agricultural innovation in Africa.
Okay, agriculture.
Yeah, they were looking at this issue of post-harvest losses, which is huge.
Get over here, we're talking.
Like a staggering 40% of crops are lost after they're harvested.
Wow, that's a lot.
And that's due to a lot of factors like inefficient supply chains, lack of proper storage, things like that. So what they did was they trained young entrepreneurs on using specialized apps and supply chain technologies.
Okay.
And the results were pretty amazing.
What happened?
They managed to reduce those post-harvest losses from 40% down to around 12%.
That's a huge improvement.
And as a result, farmer incomes increased by over a third.
Wow, that's a direct and significant impact on people's livelihoods.
Absolutely, and that's just one example.
What else did they highlight?
Well, they also talked about healthcare delivery in rural Asia.
Okay, healthcare.
Yeah, a lot of these areas have limited access to medical professionals.
Right, a common problem.
So what they did was they utilized telemedicine training for community health workers. And they supported that with AI-powered diagnostic hubs.
So kind of bringing medical expertise to remote areas.
Exactly. And that resulted in a substantial increase in specialist consultations and a significant reduction in maternal mortality rates.
Those are life-saving changes.
Absolutely. These aren't just abstract numbers. These represent real improvements in people's lives. And they also had a really interesting example in Latin America focusing on water management.
Okay, water scarcity is a big issue in a lot of places.
Yeah, so they addressed that by training people on smart irrigation techniques. And that led to the adoption of low-cost IoT systems.
The Internet of Things.
Yep, sensors and data to optimize water usage.
Interesting.
And they saw impressive gains in water efficiency and crop yields.
So again, a very practical application of technology.
Yeah, it's all about taking these high-tech solutions and making them relevant to very specific local challenges. Now, another thing this white paper does really well is that it brings in the perspectives of experts in the field.
Okay, good to get some outside opinions.
Yeah, they've got quotes and insights from people who are really working on the ground in these areas.
What were some of the perspectives that resonated with you?
Well, one that I found particularly insightful was from a senior development economist. And he emphasized the importance of focusing on sustainable empowerment rather than just temporary aid.
Right, not just giving handouts, but actually equipping people to help themselves.
Exactly. And he saw that in EON-XR's approach, this focus on linking technology access with practical skills development and entrepreneurial pathways. So the aim is to foster long-term economic growth and self-sufficiency within communities.
That's a really important distinction.
Absolutely.
What other expert perspectives were there?
Well, they also had a quote from a digital inclusion researcher.
Okay.
And she highlighted the potential of that accelerated knowledge transfer that we talked about earlier that's enabled by the XR platform. And she saw that as a way to really fundamentally change how we approach skills development in underserved regions.
Okay.
Essentially shortening the learning curve to meet immediate economic demands.
So making sure people can acquire the skills they need to participate in the modern economy.
Exactly. Now, the white paper also touches on this topic that's on everyone's mind these days.
What's that?
AI, artificial intelligence.
The AI tsunami, as some people are calling it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of concern about how this rapid advancement in AI is going to impact the global south.
Right. Concerns about job displacement.
Exactly. But the white paper presents a bit of a different perspective.
Okay, how so?
They frame it not just as a threat, but also as a significant opportunity.
Interesting.
Their approach is designed to proactively equip individuals with the skills to become AI implementers within their own communities.
So instead of being replaced by AI, they're empowered to utilize it.
Exactly. And that includes training in how to apply AI to local challenges, even creating new job roles in areas like AI supervision, data management, AI customization.
Skills that might be less susceptible to full automation themselves.
Right. They're thinking about the long-term implications. So the focus is on becoming active participants in the AI revolution rather than just passive recipients of its impacts.
That's a much more empowering vision.
And EON-XR already has this massive network of users.
How big are we talking?
42 million users.
Wow, that's a lot.
So there's this existing infrastructure for potential cross-cultural learning and the sharing of successful solutions.
That kind of global collaborative environment could be really powerful.
Yeah, it could really accelerate innovation and the adoption of best practices on a large scale. So that's the overview of EON Reality's approach as laid out in this white paper.
It's a pretty comprehensive and ambitious vision.
It is, and it's got me thinking about the potential for real change.
Yeah, it's definitely thought-provoking.
Now, as we wrap up our deep dive, I'm curious, what's one final thought or future initiative mentioned in the white paper that really stuck with you?
Well, one thing that really stood out to me was their commitment to actually putting these ideas into practice.
Okay.
They're not just talking about it, they're actively working to make it happen.
So they've got some concrete plans.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of initiatives in the works, like a global implementation summit, a technology transfer accelerator, and they're even developing regional spatial AI centers of excellence.
Wow, they're really building out an ecosystem.
Yeah, and they've got a significant in-kind development fund to support all this. And they're launching an AI for Good Fellowship program to bring in more people and ideas.
So they're really putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. And it makes you think about, if all these initiatives gain momentum, what kind of impact could that have on a global scale?
That's the big question, and it's an exciting one to consider.
It is.
So for our listeners out there who are intrigued by what we've talked about today, I definitely recommend checking out the full white paper.
Yeah, it's worth a read.
And you can also follow EON Reality's work through their podcast and blog to stay up to date on their progress.
All right, well, I think that's a great place to leave it.
Thanks for diving deep with me today.
You too, always a pleasure.
And to all our listeners, stay curious.
Keep learning.